What if I told you the Yankees' most complete player in 2025 might be the smartest investment they can make this winter, but they're hesitating? While Toronto just dropped $210 million on Dylan Cease and is already eyeing their next big move, the Bronx is at a crossroads. Cody Bellinger's future hangs in the balance, and the teams circling, they're not just interested, they're aggressive, loaded with cash, and ready to pounce the moment the Yankees blink. Hello, Yankees universe. Welcome to NYY News Today, your go-to spot for the latest New York Yankees updates. Today we're breaking down one of the most fascinating storylines of this offseason, Cody Bellinger's free agency. And here's what makes this so compelling. This isn't just about dollars and cents. This is about roster construction, championship windows, and whether the Yankees truly understand the value of what they have. The Blue Jays just made the biggest splash of the winter with Dylan Cease. The Mets are lurking with Steve Cohen's checkbook. The Phillies are in win-now mode. And the Yankees, they're the favorites to re-sign Bellinger, but being the favorite doesn't mean anything if you don't close the deal. So before we dive deep into the numbers, the competition, and what this really means for the 2026 Yankees, smash that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and drop a comment. Should the Yankees pay whatever it takes to keep Bellinger in Pinstripes? Let's break this down. Let's start with what we know. And Yankees fans, you need to understand the landscape here because it's shifted dramatically in just the last week. According to Bob Nightingale of USA Today, the New York Yankees remain the leading contender to re-sign Cody Bellinger. That's the good news. But here's where it gets interesting. The Mets, Phillies, and Blue Jays are all lurking. And these aren't teams that are just kicking tires. These are organizations ready to write massive checks. Now, Peter Chihuahua of Forbes reported that talks between Bellinger and the Yankees have hit a snag. What does that really mean? It means there's a gap, whether it's years, dollars, or structure. And in free agency, gaps are dangerous. Every day the Yankees hesitate is another day for Toronto, New York's crosstown rival, or Philadelphia to swoop in with an offer that changes everything. Here's what makes this situation particularly compelling. Bellinger's camp is reminding everyone that he's just 1.5 years older than Kyle Tucker, who's 28. Why does that matter? Because Tucker is the consensus #1 free agent this winter, and he's expected to command a contract that could approach $400 million. Bellinger's representatives are positioning him as a similar caliber player with long-term value. And when you look at what he did in 2025, they've got a strong case. Let me break down his season for you, because these numbers tell a story. In 152 games with the Yankees, Bellinger slashed 272, 334, 480, with an 814 OPS. He crushed 29 home runs, his most since his 2019 MVP season, drove in 98 RBIs, and added 13 stolen bases. That's not just solid production, that's elite all-around performance. But here's the part that makes Bellinger truly special, his defensive versatility. Bellinger started 85 games in left field, 52 inches right, 41 inches center, and even saw time at first base. In today's game, where roster flexibility is everything, that kind of versatility is invaluable. He posted a +7 outs above average and ranked third among all left fielders in fielding run value. This is a player who impacts the game in multiple dimensions. Now let's talk about what really happened over the past week, because this is where the market dynamics come into play. The Toronto Blue Jays, who fell just 2 outs short of winning the World Series against the Dodgers, made the biggest move of the offseason by signing Dylan Cease to a 7-year, $210 million contract. That's the largest free agent deal in Blue Jays history, and they're not done. Multiple reports confirm that Tucker visited the Blue Jays facility in Dunedin, Florida, just this week. Toronto is aggressive, they're motivated, and they have the financial flexibility to make another massive move. Here's the fascinating part. The Blue Jays view Bellinger as their fallback plan if they don't land Tucker. But, and this is crucial, they're willing to spend on him like he's their first choice. Think about that for a second. Toronto just committed $210 million to pitching, and they're prepared to potentially add another $180+ million for an outfielder. That's the level of aggression the Yankees are competing against. So why hasn't this deal been done yet? Spotrac projects Bellinger's 6-year value at over $182 million. That's a substantial commitment, especially for a Yankees front office that's been publicly trying to control spending. Hal Steinbrenner has made it clear he wants to be prudent with long-term deals, and the Yankees' payroll is already stretched with existing contracts. The question becomes, how much are the Yankees willing to invest to keep Bellinger? And here's where the pressure really builds. The Mets have money to burn with Steve Cohen writing the checks. The Phillies are in win-now mode and need outfield help. And if the Yankees drag their feet, any one of these teams could step in with an offer that changes the entire dynamic of this negotiation. According to ESPN's Jeff Passan, Tucker isn't close to signing yet, which means the domino effect everyone's been waiting for hasn't happened. But when it does, Bellinger's market will explode. Here's what I want you to understand. This isn't just about replacing one player. This is about roster construction, lineup balance, and creating the kind of depth that championship teams require. Cody Bellinger wasn't just another bat in 2025, he was the perfect complement to Aaron Judge's historic season. And losing that dynamic would fundamentally change how this team is built. Let's talk about what Judge did this year, because context matters. Aaron Judge won his third AL MVP award and his first batting title, leading the majors with a .331 average while crushing 58 home runs and driving in 144 RBIs. He also led baseball in on-base percentage, .457, and slugging, .688. Judge became only the third player in MLB history to hit 50-plus home runs and win a batting title, joining Mickey Mantle and Jimmy Fox. This was an all-time great season, one that will be remembered for decades. But here's the key insight. Judge didn't do it alone. Bellinger provided exactly what the Yankees needed: protection in the lineup, flexibility in the field, and consistent production that took pressure off their superstar. When Judge was pitched around or having an off day, Bellinger could pick up the slack. That's what championship rosters do. They have multiple threats, not just one. Think about Bellinger's defensive versatility for a moment. He started 85 games in left field, 52 inches right, 41 inches center, and even played first base. That kind of flexibility allowed Aaron Boone to optimize matchups, rest players strategically, and adjust defensively based on opposing lineups. You lose Bellinger, and suddenly the roster becomes rigid. You're forced into less optimal alignments. You lose the ability to maximize rest for key players, and you put more burden on guys who may not be ready for expanded roles. And offensively, Bellinger's 29 home runs and 98 RBIs represented exactly the kind of secondary punch the Yankees have been searching for in recent years. Look, we all know the Yankees' offense has lived and died with Aaron Judge for too long. They've struggled to find that consistent second threat who can produce at a high level over a full season. Bellinger was that guy in 2025. He wasn't just riding Judge's coattails, he was creating his own impact. But here's what really stands out when you dig into the numbers. Bellinger's home, road splits. At Yankee Stadium, he slashed 302, 365, 544, with an edge, 909 OPS, 18 home runs, and 55 RBIs in 80 games. That short right field porch played perfectly to his swing, and he took full advantage. This is a player who thrives in the Bronx, who understands how to play to the ballpark's dimensions, and who clearly enjoyed wearing the pinstripes. Now, some might point to his road splits: 241, 301, 414 inches, 72 games, and say, see, he's too dependent on Yankee Stadium. But I'd flip that argument completely. Isn't it valuable to have a player who absolutely maximizes his home environment? The Yankees play 81 games a year in the Bronx. Having someone who crushes at home gives you a built-in advantage in half your games. That's not a weakness, that's a feature. Here's the other dimension people aren't talking about enough: his performance against left-handed pitching. Bellinger posted a 353, 415, 601 slash line against lefties in 176 plate appearances. That's elite production, and it gives the Yankees a legitimate weapon in platoon situations or late-game matchups. Not every player can hit lefties that well, and it's another layer of value that makes Bellinger indispensable. But let's zoom out for a second and talk about what losing Bellinger would really mean. If he signs with the Mets, suddenly you're facing a lineup that has Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, and Bellinger. That's terrifying. If he goes to the Phillies, he's hitting alongside Bryce Harper and Trea Turner. And if Toronto lands him as a consolation prize after missing on Tucker, the Blue Jays, who just won the AL pennant, get even better, and the Yankees' path through the AL East becomes that much harder. This isn't just about keeping a good player. This is about not letting a competitor get better at your expense. That's championship-level roster management. Let's talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough in these free agency debates: the concept of buying a player's prime years versus paying for decline. Cody Bellinger will be 30 years old on opening day 2026. That's not old, that's prime. And when you compare his situation to recent MLB history, the value proposition becomes crystal clear. Bellinger's camp has been smart to position him alongside Kyle Tucker, who's 28. That 1.5-year age gap is minimal, and both players are entering what should be their peak performance years. But here's what makes Bellinger's case even stronger. He just posted career-best marks in several categories. His 4.94 and 5 BWAR in 2025 were the second highest of his career, and his 13.7% strikeout rate was a career low. This is a player who's still improving, still refining his approach, and still has room to get better. Compare that to some of the deals we've seen in recent years. Chris Bryant signed a 7-year, $182 million contract with the Rockies at age 30. George Springer landed a 6-year, $150 million deal with the Blue Jays before his age 31 season. Both of those contracts were considered reasonable at the time, and Bellinger's projected $180 plus million over 6 years fits right into that market range. The difference? Bellinger just had his second best season, while Bryant and Springer had already shown signs of decline. Now, let's address the elephant in the room: Bellinger's inconsistency earlier in his career. After his 2019 MVP season with the Dodgers, he struggled through 2020 to 2022, and the Dodgers ultimately non-tendered him. But here's what Yankees fans need to understand: that version of Bellinger is gone. The player who struggled in LA figured things out in Chicago and then elevated his game to new heights in the Bronx. His 2023 Comeback Player of the Year campaign with the Cubs showed he could bounce back. His 2024 season was solid, if unspectacular. But 2025, that was proof that Bellinger has found a sustainable level of excellence. His hard hit percentage climbed to 37.9%, his walk rate improved to 8.7%, and his plate discipline reached elite levels. These aren't fluke numbers, they're the result of real adjustments and maturation as a hitter. Here's another way to look at it. The Yankees picked up Bellinger for essentially nothing Cody Poteet in a salary dump trade with the Cubs and got 5 WAR of production. That's one of the best value acquisitions of the 2024 to 25 offseason. Now, the question is whether the Yankees are willing to pay market rate to keep that value in-house, or whether they'll let another team capitalize on what New York helped build. And let's talk about positional versatility again, because in today's game, this is worth its weight in gold. Teams are carrying smaller benches, and the ability to move players around the diamond without losing defensive quality is a massive competitive advantage. Bellinger gives you that. He's not just a can-play multiple positions guy, he's elite or above average at every position he plays. That's rare, and it's worth paying for. Compare that to some of the free agent alternatives. If the Yankees don't re-sign Bellinger, who replaces him? Do they go after a pure corner outfielder who can't play center? Do they rely on prospects who might not be ready? Do they pivot to a first baseman who can't play the outfield? Every alternative comes with compromises that Bellinger doesn't force you to make. There's also a leadership and clubhouse element here that's harder to quantify, but no less important. Bellinger is a former MVP, a World Series champion, and a respected veteran. He understands winning cultures because he's been part of one in Los Angeles. The Yankees' young players, guys like Anthony Volpe, Oswald Peraza, and Austin Wells, benefit from having that kind of presence in the locker room. Here's the bottom line. At 30 years old, coming off a career year, with elite versatility and a proven track record of performing in big markets, Bellinger represents exactly the kind of player championship teams lock up. The risk isn't in signing him, the risk is in letting him walk and watching him thrive elsewhere. Let's game out how this plays out, because the next few weeks are absolutely critical for the Yankees' championship window. And I want to be clear about something. There are scenarios where this works out beautifully for the Bronx, and there are scenarios that could haunt this franchise for years. Let's break them down. Scenario 1. The Yankees get creative and close the deal. Here's the most likely path to success. The Yankees recognize that Bellinger's value transcends just his on-field production. They structure a deal that works within their budget constraints, maybe 6 years with some deferred money, maybe incentives based on games played or awards. The key is getting creative with the structure while still delivering the total value Bellinger deserves. If this happens, the Yankees' 2026 roster instantly becomes one of the most balanced in baseball. You've got Judge coming off back-to-back MVP seasons. You've got a proven secondary threat in Bellinger. You've got young players like Volpe, Wells, and others continuing to develop. This isn't just about keeping the roster intact, it's about building championship depth. And here's the thing about re-signing Bellinger. It sends a message to the rest of the league. It says the Yankees are committed to winning now, that they value proven performers, and that they understand how to build around their superstar. That's not just good for the roster, it's good for organizational culture. Scenario 2. The domino effect works in the Yankees' favor. Remember, Kyle Tucker hasn't signed yet, and according to multiple insiders, he's taking his time. What if Tucker signs somewhere, let's say the Phillies, or even back with the Cubs, and suddenly the market for Bellinger cools slightly? The Blue Jays might pivot to re-signing Bo Bichette. The teams that missed on Tucker might look at other options. That could create a window where the Yankees can sign Bellinger at a more favorable number. This scenario requires patience and strategic timing, but it's not unrealistic. The Yankees have leverage here because they're Bellinger's first choice. He's already said publicly he'd love to return. If the market develops in a way that benefits New York, they could end up getting elite production at a reasonable price. That's championship-level roster management. Scenario 3. The Yankees pivot strategically. Now, let's talk about the scenario where the Yankees decide the price is too high and they need to go in a different direction. I'm not advocating for this, but let's be realistic about what that could look like. Maybe they make a serious run at Tucker themselves. Maybe they target multiple players to fill Bellinger's role through committee. Maybe they trust Spencer Jones or another prospect to take a big leap. The problem with this scenario is the risk. Tucker would cost significantly more than Bellinger, and there's no guarantee the Yankees would win that bidding war. A committee approach rarely works as well in practice as it does on paper, and betting on prospects is inherently risky, especially when you're trying to maximize a championship window around Aaron Judge's prime years. But here's what's interesting. If the Yankees did go this route, they'd need to be aggressive elsewhere. Maybe that means adding multiple pieces instead of one big one. Maybe it means addressing the rotation or bullpen more aggressively. The key would be ensuring that whatever they do, it doesn't leave the roster weaker than it was in 2025. Scenario 4. The nightmare a division rival swoops in. This is the scenario that should keep Yankees fans up at night. The Blue Jays, fresh off their World Series appearance and clearly willing to spend, make Bellinger an offer he can't refuse. Suddenly, the Yankees aren't just losing a player, they're watching the defending AL champions get better while they get worse. The Blue Jays would have Bellinger, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and potentially Bo Bichette in the same lineup. That's terrifying. Or imagine the Mets scenario. Steve Cohen decides he wants to make a statement signing, and Bellinger ends up in Queens. The optics alone would be brutal for the Yankees, but the on-field impact would be even worse. 19 games a year against a player you developed in a park that suited him perfectly, now helping a division rival. That's the kind of move that can define an offseason for all the wrong reasons. Here's what I believe will happen. The Yankees are going to stay in this negotiation, but they're going to try to wait out the market. They're banking on Tucker signing somewhere else and creating a clearer picture of what Bellinger's market actually looks like. The risk is that while they wait, another team with fewer internal debates and more financial flexibility makes a move that changes everything. But here's my message to the Yankees front office. If they're listening, sometimes the smart move isn't the patient move. Sometimes you have to recognize that you have something special, something that fits perfectly with what you're trying to build, and you just pay the man. Cody Bellinger isn't a luxury, he's a necessity. For a team that wants to compete for championships in 2026 and beyond, the flexibility, the production, the fit with Judge, the leadership, it all adds up to a player you don't let walk over dollars that won't matter if you don't win a World Series. The clock is ticking, the Blue Jays are aggressive, the Mets are lurking, and the Yankees are at a crossroads. Let's hope they choose wisely. So, there you have it, Yankees universe. Cody Bellinger's free agency isn't just another offseason storyline, it's a referendum on how serious the Yankees are about winning championships right now. The Blue Jays just proved they're all in with Dylan Cease. The Mets are always lurking with Steve Cohen's checkbook wide open. The Phillies are desperate for outfield help and ready to spend. And the Yankees? They're still the favorites, but favorites don't always win, especially when they hesitate. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Bellinger at 30 years old, coming off a 5 WAR season, with elite defensive versatility and proven production in the Bronx, represents exactly the kind of player championship organizations lock up. The risk isn't in signing him, the risk is in watching him sign elsewhere and realizing too late what you had. This Yankees team with Aaron Judge coming off back-to-back MVP seasons has a championship window that's wide open right now. You don't waste those opportunities by being penny wise and pound foolish. You invest in proven talent that fits perfectly with what you're building. Bellinger is that player. So, here's my question for you. Do the Yankees match any offer to keep Bellinger, or is there a number where you'd rather see them walk away and take their chances? I genuinely want to hear your take on this, so drop a comment below and let's have that conversation. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into Bellinger's free agency, do me a huge favor, smash that like button, subscribe to NYY News Today for all the latest Yankees coverage, and hit that notification bell so you never miss when we break down the next big move. We've got winter meetings coming up, more free agency developments on the horizon, and you know we'll be here breaking it all down for you. Until next time, Yankees universe, stay loud, stay proud, and let's hope the front office understands the value of what they have. This is a decision that could define the next 5 years of Yankees baseball. Let's hope they get it right. Go Yankees!